Hi everybody, chapter 4. Just gonna recap. So he started off the chapter by saying that he's gonna talk about how many categories? I think 7 categories. He's gonna talk about first matters that benefit the person himself, then matters that benefit his livelihood, as well as sources of his wealth. The third, matters that benefit members of his household, his wife, his close family members, friends, his enemies, people who are either more important or less important than him. Okay, so those are 3 things. Okay? I thought there was more. I'm trying to think if there was something else. So basically we went through the first, in the beginning, we spoke about things that relate to him, which are his health benefit, right? What attitude should he have about his health, placing himself in danger, different things of how to deal with his personal health, security. Then we spoke about his wealth. What attitude should he have for his basic subsistence plus his wealth. And now we're up to the part that talks about his relationship with his wife, his children, his enemies, his co-workers, everyone. What attitude should he have? Hi, Vanessa.
With others, right? Basically?
Yes. What attitude should he have when it comes to relating with other people? Okay? And what's interesting to note is for those who know a little bit of, not Tanya, who know a little bit of psychology. Do you know the pyramid of Maslow?
Yeah.
So
the needs.
So I find it interesting that you can match.
Really?
The basic need is security, safety, and he talks about that. Then it's making money, acquiring things. He talks about that, and now he talks about relationships. So I thought it's interesting that that matches, and he's way before the pyramid, the Maslow's.
Way before.
Yeah. So let's review what we spoke about last week, 2 weeks ago, actually. No, actually, I want to start with an introduction. Introduction about the parasha. The parasha talks about our forefathers. We learned first about Abraham, then we learned about Yitzchak.
It's Toldot.
And now we're learning about Yaakov. So what's the difference between all of them? Abraham was a very outgoing person. He loved to connect with people and did a lot of outreach, right? He was the first Chabad rabbi. Oh wait, Mia's joining. Hi Mia, you came just in time. So Abraham was the first, was someone who's very social, out there, outgoing. Yitzchak was the opposite. Yitzchak never traveled. We don't talk about him meeting people or inviting people. He was someone who worked very much on his inwardness, on being alone, actually, to what we're talking about. And what's the difference, and how can we learn from both sides? There are we as the children of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov have to learn from them. We have to learn that yes, it's beautiful to be outgoing and outreach, but it's also as important to be inwards and to take time for yourself and to do the opposite of outreach. We need to have a balance between both. So I thought that was interesting. Then there's the children of Yitzchak is Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov and Esav were 2 opposites also. Yaakov was someone who loved to learn, sit and learn. It said he would sit and learn, while Esav would go out and hunt. Chassidut explains to us that Esav and Yaakov represents the soul versus the body. The soul that loves to do, to learn, to connect to God, to do everything good, versus the body that loves pleasure. Hunting is like going and finding things and constantly hunting for your desires and pleasures. It says that when Mashiach, that actually Esav his source was higher than Yaakov.
Yeah. We heard about that.
And that when Mashiach comes, Yaakov and Esav will reunite together, and Esav will be able to see the good in Esav and not him as an evil person. So too, in Torah or in Judaism, many times people see the body as a negative thing because it stops you from wanting to keep Torah and mitzvot. It has all these desires, these unholy thoughts, you see the body as something negative, but it says that actually when Mashiach comes, the body is going to be higher than the soul. And so this is a little bit, yes, the body is going to be higher than the soul, and the body and the soul is going to merge, that it's going to work together as a team and not one fighting the other. So this is a little introduction on the weekly parsha, and a preparation for Mashiach when our body is going to be higher than the soul. Okay, now inside, let's go inside. The Rabbeinu Bachai talks about social companionship, our social life. In life, you're either going to be alone or you're going to be surrounded by loved ones, friends, and family. And he's going to tell people how bitachon is important. How bitachon is important if you're alone, and how bitachon is important if you're with people. Okay, so we started speaking last week a little bit about being alone, that it's not guaranteed that everyone's going to be given companionship. It's not similar to sustenance where everyone's guaranteed companionship. Is either you're alone or you have companionship. And also important to know that sometimes during your lifetime, there will be time where you're going to be with a companion, and sometimes you're going to be without. So what attitude, how can you have bitachon in those times? And he brings in a story that's very important. ואמרו על אחד מהפרושים שנכנס למדינה אחת להורות את יושבי עבודת האלוקים, וימצאם לובשים צבע אחד במלבושיהם ותכשיטיהם, וראה קבריהם אצל פתחי בתיהם, ולא ראה ביניהם אישה. It's a story of an ascetic. A perush is someone who leads his life separated from material things. He wants to live a holy life, so he separates himself from certain things. So it's a story of one of those guys, who traveled to a certain country to teach the people there about the correct way to serve Hashem. What happens? He gets there and he finds them all wearing the same color clothing. They were wearing like very basic, very plain clothing, but all the same. And then he saw that their grave site was by their door. Like they opened the door, they walked out, there was their graveyards there, which was also very weird. And he also noticed that there was no women. So ושאל אותם על זה, ואמרו לו, מה שאנו לובשים צבע אחד, שלא יהיה ניכר העני מן העשיר, ושלא יבוא העשיר להתגאות ולהספאר בהשכו, ויבוא העני להזבזות אצל עצמו, ושידמה ענייננו על האדמה כענייננו תחתיה, ונאמר על אחד מהמלכים שהיה מתערב בין עבדיו, ולא היה ניכר ביניהם מפני שהיה נוהג מנהג השפלות בתכשיטיו ובמלבושיו. When he asked about this, so he asked them, why are you guys dressing like that? Why are the gravesides by your doors? And why are there no women? So they answered, the reason why we all wear the same color clothing is so that it should not be distinguishable between the poor and the rich, and so that the rich will not end up arrogant and boastful about his wealth, and so that the poor will not despise himself, or he should think of his life on this earth in the same manner as when he will be underneath after his passing. It is said about one of the kings that he would mingle among his servants and could not be identified among them because he conducted himself humbly in regard to the clothes and ornaments that he wore. Again, just to explain us, why did they wear plain clothes? They answer, because we don't want to separate between rich and wealthy. Rich and poor. We don't want to be so arrogant when we wear fancy clothes. We want to remember that in the end we're gonna,
it's a detail. Mm-hmm.
ומה ששמנו כברות מתינו אצל פתחנו כדי שנבחך מהם ונהיה נכונים למות ונזמין לנו הצדה המאגת אותנו למקום המנוחה. As for the reason why we placed our grave sites next to the doors of our houses, it is in order that we should take rebuke from it by being ready for death and to prepare for ourselves the provisions that will bring us to the place of rest. So again, it's to remember, why did they put the graveside by their door? Is to remember that they're going to end up there. And by remembering that, it's going to give them the fear that, you know, they have to make the most of every moment, because one day they'll end up in the grave.
Kind of glauque un peu.
Yeah.
Parce que ici, les cimetières, ils sont en plein centre-ville aussi, ça me choque.
Yeah.
Au Maroc et tout, il faut que tu ailles loin, c'est retiré.
ומה שראית שפרשנו מן הנשים והבנים, דע כי ייחדנו להם קריאה קרובה מכאן, כשישתרך אחד ממנו על דבר מדבריהם, ילך עליהם וישליך צחקו וישוב אלינו, מפני שראינו במה שיכנס עלינו מטרדת הלב, ורוב ההפסד וגודל היגיע והטורח בקרבתם והמנוחה מכל זה בהרחקתם לבחור בענייני העולם הבא ולמאוס בענייני העולם הזה. That which you notice, that we separated ourselves from our wives and children, you should know that we designated a city for them nearby. When one of us needs something from them, he goes to them and takes care of his needs, and he then returns to us. We did this because we saw the stress, the loss, the great exertion and toil that would come to us as a result of being in proximity to them, and the relief from all this due to our distance from them, enabling us to be free to choose to engage in matters of the world to come and to detest the matters of this world. ויתבו דבריהם בעיני הפרוש ויברך אותם וישכם בעניינם. Their words found favor in the eyes of the ascetic who had visited them, and he blessed and praised them for their practices. So now we have to know something very important. This is a very interesting story. The Rambam argues that you should never become a perush. Perush is someone who separates himself and go to the extreme to separate yourself from the world. This is not the way the Torah wants. The Rambam was a big advocate of finding a middle path in your life, of being very balanced between not being too materialistic and not being the opposite. For those people who run to the mountains, who separate themselves from materialistic, that is not the Torah way. Chassidus brings that. In the time of the Baal Shem Tov, there were people who would hit themselves, roll themselves in the snow, because they were hitting their body for wanting all these desires, these worldly or these desires that they didn't, and that were not Torah. And the Baal Shem Tov came and said, no, don't do that. He would travel around town, around to different cities, teaching Chassidut and asking people, how are you doing? How's your health? How's your business? Just to hear people say Baruch Hashem. He once came to a city where in the shul in the back there was a perush, there was an ascetic guy who separated himself, who dressed in simple clothes and would learn the whole entire day. And he came over to him and he started asking him, how are you doing? How's your health? And the guy ignored him. He was busy, and he repeated, how's your health? How do you feel? Like very physical things. And he started screaming at him, go away. Why are you asking me this? Don't you see I'm busy learning? Don't you see I'm busy devoting my life to Torah? And he told him, no, you're depriving God of his parnasah. You're not taking care of your materialistic needs, that you can thank God for it and elevate them by using it. Instead, you're depriving God from his parnasah. And the guy was shocked. The Rebbe brought this story to teach us. He told us this story to teach us that no, you can, to be holy and to separate yourself and to is not especially a good thing. It's not especially what the Torah wants from us. The Shlomo Melech says, Al tehi tzadik harbe. Don't be so righteous. Don't try to be so good. That's not what the Torah wants. Try your best, but don't try to be so holy and so good and separate yourself. So why does Rabbeinu Bachaya bring this story? Why does he bring the story of people separating themselves from their wives and families, of people wearing simple clothing and having graveside? What is he trying to tell us? So first of all, he's not trying to tell us that this is the life we should have. He's bringing the story for two reasons. First of all, we have to know that the beginning of the story, it's an aesthetic person, okay? Someone who naturally separates himself from material. He came to rebuke them for what they were doing. He came to rebuke them for separating themselves from the worldly matters. Even if he himself separated, but he was, I guess, more balanced and he wanted to rebuke them. But when he came, he found out that actually they didn't try to escape the world. They didn't try to separate themselves from material. What happened was a result of something. They answered him. We saw that there was so much stress, so much loss, great exertion, and toil. This answer is very important to why he brought the story. That third life, they tried it. They tried to live a life where they were working, living with their families, and doing all that. But it was bringing so much stress and toil, and they lost so much that they had to. They made that choice. So when the choice comes, not because they think this is the right thing to separate yourself, but they chose this because of their response. Wait, what did I write? Because it's a response to a situation. So too, someone who finds themselves alone. What should be your response? If Hashem made you alone right now in this time of your life, you find yourself alone, there's a reason for it. It's not because he wants to punish you. It's not a negative thing. It's actually to remove some certain toils and responsibilities that you have when you are in a companionship, when you're surrounded by so many people. So he brought this story for us to be able to change our attitude, or to have a more positive attitude, that every situation that Hashem places you is really for the good. And how do you see? Look, these people were suffering when they were surrounded by people and their families and all that, and they had to separate themselves in order to be able to think and serve God properly. So if Hashem put you in a certain situation where you find yourself alone, it's not a punishment, it's not a negative thing. It's for you to be able to connect, to work on yourself, to do things that you can't do when you're in a companionship. So again, it's all in their response. If they chose a path because...
So people that are in a companionship, they don't need to work on themselves?
No, that's not, but it's going to be harder for them. It's a response. Everything comes with, like someone wants to be wealthy, it's going to come with stress and responsibility. Somebody wants to be surrounded by friends, family, companionship, whatever it is, it's going to come also with a lot of stress. You're going to have less time to work on yourself and to be able to accomplish things that you could accomplish only when you're alone. So again, this is not something you should tell someone. This is something for yourself. It's an attitude that you should work on yourself. When you find yourself in a situation when that you're alone, instead of being miserable and being sad and negative, find the beauty. Find the beauty in it.
Is Marie okay?
Qui c'est qui parle?
Vanessa.
Pourquoi? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
Okay, well, it's okay. Well,
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
Marie, you'll share it with us after if you want to share.
Okay.
Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
Ça va, c'est bon.
Elle pleure?
Okay, so this is the I guess the silver lining to being alone, to how we can find a silver lining for living alone. So we separate so they answered. I'm just going to read some comments over here. We separated ourselves from our wives and our children. The Khatam Sofer explained that this type of service is not constant. There is a place for this type of divine service when a person is immersed in prayer and Torah study. At some time, he should not be disturbed at all by family. He should be dedicated to God. Then there are times when the commandment is clearly to involve the family, such as joy on festivals, where the verse explicitly commands, and you shall be joyous in your festivals, you and your sons and your daughters. At these times he clearly should not be separated from his family. Rather, he must include his family in his divine service. So again, it's not a thing to separate yourself from family. Like, a man should not separate himself, or a woman should not separate himself from family just to serve God. There are times maybe when he needs to do some prayers or study, but if not, he should not separate. Now that we know the attitude we should have when we're alone, he's going to tell us what attitude should we have when dealing with family and friends. Okay? So, ואם יהיה הבוטח באלוקים בעל אישה וקרובים ואוהבים ואוהבים ויבטח באלוקים בהצלתו מהם וישתדל לבחוע מה שחייב להם ולעשות חפציהם ולהיות ליבו שלם עמהם וירף ידו מהזקתם ויסבב על מה שיהיה טוב להם ויהיה נאמן בכל ענייניהם. If the person trusting in God has a wife or a husband, family member, friends, and enemies, then he should rely on God to save him from the burden usually associated with being involved with them, and he should make efforts to meet his obligation towards them and to take care of their wants, and not to do so wholeheartedly. He should avoid doing anything that will cause them harm. Instead, he should engage in the means that will bring them good, and he should be loyal to them regarding all their matters. So this is a very interesting thing that he says over here. Who knows what codependency is?
Yeah.
I think I know what it is, but I'm going to explain. Codependency is the fear of being alone. No, the fear that you're so okay, maybe I'm saying it
But
wrong.
being alone, in a way, codependent.
That you're
is someone
constantly
that
wanting to
can't-
please others, right?
But you need, it comes from la dépendance affective,
Right.
because a lot of people are dependent affectively. That's the motherhood of all.
But I think it's a
dependents.
fear of being alone.
It's not a fear of being alone. Is that you can't be alone because your own company is too much to
Okay,
handle.
exactly. So I do understand codependency. Codependency, constantly being dependent for your
For others,
moods,
affection of
for
others.
everything. But it's so much that your moods will be dependent on on the people around. The Shaar Habitachon tells us the opposite of how to be so healthy that you will not be codependent. He says that a person who has family, he's surrounded by friends, family, husband, whatever, you have everything,
Yeah.
you should never rely on them. You should always rely on God. Even if it's your husband who provides for you, or even if it's your boss who's paying you your paycheck every month, never rely on them. The burden should not be on them. And he should make every efforts to meet his, and as a person who's a provider, if you're the provider, what attitude should you want is you should take care of them, but not so wholeheartedly. That means you know that you're not really their provider. You're providing for them, but you're just a messenger from Hashem. You should avoid anything that will cause them harm, okay? Someone who did something really bad to you, okay? And it's very interesting. I want you guys to note that in his relationships, he says your husband or wife, your close ones, your loved ones, and your enemies. Your enemies are people that are part of your relationships. It's very interesting that he keeps on
Dans les prières, on
that
parle
he
souvent de
keeps
nos ennemis.
on writing that. So you should never want them harm. You should, Hashem will take care of that. You should depend and constantly rely on God. All that codependence that you put on people, put it on Hashem. Healthy codependence, how do you have healthy codependence? Is when you take that dependent that you have on people, on different people in your life, and you put it fully on Hashem. He should avoid doing anything that will cause them harm, meaning he should avoid harming his enemies. Rather, a person should show them the proper way of the Torah. So if you have a choice, right, an enemy, someone who did something really bad to you, right? They stole money from you, or they they accused you falsely. I don't know. I'm thinking of different things that someone could do to you. What the natural attitude that you would have is, I want to get them back. I'm going to teach them a lesson. I'm going to harm them. I'm going to make sure everyone knows that they are bad people. The Torah says no. Shaar Habitachon says don't do that. Don't bring them harm. Just tell them. Teach them what the Torah way is. How no. They stole. They think that they got away with stealing, but that's not the Torah way. And in the end, they're harming themselves. Hillel teaches us, be a disciple of Aaron. Love peace. Love the creatures and bring them close to the Torah. The use of the term creatures here is as if they say that even those who are distant from the way of God's Torah and his service, for which reason they are simply called creatures. A person must pull him close with thick cords of love, and perhaps through this he will be able to draw him close to the ways of the Torah and divine services. And if he does not bring him close to God, he still has fulfilled the commandments to love a fellow Jew. Okay?
Only with Jews. We're not talking if a guy is harming you, you're not trying to make him close to God.
I guess. Honestly, that's a good question, because all creation, you can bring them close to God. Why not?
No, but I mean, do you ignore them if they harm you, or you try to maintain a relationship? It's toxic.
I don't know, but he
know
did
what
say
I mean?
to maintain a relationship.
Yeah, because
he said,
like,
don't bring them harm.
Yeah, this I understand.
You can love them with putting borders.
That's
You
it,
don't
huh?
have to go out of your way. That's just being that's not
Stupid.
healthy. Yeah, that's not healthy boundaries. But he's saying, don't try to harm them and hate them, and
Take control of their revenge. Okay.
hating someone in your heart is also harmful. Love them. If you need to cut from them, cut the relationship.
But
But
don't
you
hate
love don't hate them, don't harm them. Instead, he should engage in the means that will bring them good. The Zohar states, come and see how Joseph acted towards his brother. Okay, Joseph was sold by his brothers. His brothers, without any mercy, sold him. They did the worst thing to him. And he not only did not take revenge by harming them, he acted kindly and nobly towards them, right? When they came down to Egypt to buy for food, he could have really done something bad. He was in a high position. This attitude is a path of the righteous, and in reward for such behavior, the Holy One, blessed be He, will have mercy on you constantly in this world and in the world to come. Okay, this is a very hard level to have. We don't expect that from you if you can't act nicely towards your enemy or towards someone who brought harm to you. At least pray for them in your heart. The Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi, writes, when hatred rises in a person's mind, God forbid, towards another, or jealousy or anger or a grudge, he immediately removes this thought from his mind and does not entertain it. On the contrary, he prevails over his emotion, treats this person with kindness, and shows an abundance of love. Not only does he not take revenge, but on the contrary, he repays the offender with good, as we learned from the Zohar. So again, there's many emotions. There are not many emotions that the Torah tells us not to have. One of the emotions that the Torah tells us not to have is jealousy and hate.
Et la colère, anger also.
Anger, you're right. Anger also. So these are not healthy. These are natural emotions you will have when someone harms you.
For sure.
But you should not hate them or be jealous or hold a grudge. Instead, you should love them in your heart. Again,
Is it because they're God's creature, so we shouldn't hate God's creature, or because bitachon is so high that we should always think that it's also this coming from Hashem?
That's more like it. Why? So the reason why is because everything that happens in the world, this was Joseph's attitude. When he saw his brothers, he said, you sold me, but it wasn't your plan. It was always God's plan.
Ultimately,
so he wasn't upset because he had such a strong bitachon that Hashem chose his path.
Okay.
That he wasn't angry with his brothers. So too, when an enemy harms you, when someone harms you, sometimes it can be a friend, unfortunately, sometimes it can be family. When they harm you, don't hold a grudge, don't hate them, don't be jealous, try to love them and realize that really this comes from Hashem. Again, this is all helping us not being codependent, not being stuck in relationships or in grudges or in anger. when you put your whole bitachon in Hashem, your whole reliance in Hashem, you realize that really your life is guided by Hashem. And if this happened, it was meant to happen. But something interesting that I heard, it says that God will never bring negative things through good people, like through righteous people. He will, like things that happen that are bad in your life will happen through bad people. So it's also something important to know. You don't want to be that bad person who brings harm to another person. So there's that also that's important to know. In the story of Joseph and his brothers, the good and beneficial path of God is apparent. The sale of Joseph, which brought him down to Egypt, was not merely intended to begin the Egyptian exile, which led to the receiving of the Torah, but his descent to Egypt was intended to alleviate the hardship of the Jews. God has sent me ahead to save your lives. It was not you who sent me here, rather Hashem. This truth of Yosef is the truth of every hardship. Although the good is not evident in all situations, it is nevertheless a plan that comes from God, who only does good. Therefore, every offender should be treated and repaid with good. Indeed, the commandment to avoid causing harm and promoting good is a friend and foe alike. So again, anything bad that happens to your life, if that person brought it, it's because they were a bad person. But it wasn't their choice. It came through Hashem. Hashem had a path, and he chose that person to bring that negative thing.
So there is bad persons in Jewish people?
There's always Rasha. For sure there's a bad people. Although the good is not evident in all situations, it is all a plan that comes from God, who only does good. And you know that in the end, it's all for the good. We don't see it right away, but it is all for the good. I'm thinking of a story that actually happened to us, private. I won't share what happened, but also a Jewish guy that did something horrible to us. And honestly, I feel bad for him. I never prayed harm. I still don't see the good. It's still a challenge, but I feel very bad for him that he did this and that it had to come from him. And I now with what I'm learning even more, I should pray for him, because I heard he's not doing very well right now. And
mentally, you mean?
No, he's sick with what he did. He did something very bad, not only to many people. And I should pray for him. I'm gonna say a little prayer for him that he should be healed and hopefully come out of this struggle. And yeah, again, it takes a lot of strength to be able to forgive and to realize that it's not really them. It's not really them. No one is in control of our lives. No one is in control of our lives. And when you have power over someone, right? When you're supposed to pay someone or give money to someone or provide for someone, don't take that control. Don't give it wholeheartedly. Know that you're just a messenger of Hashem. And hopefully make sure that you're always a good messenger and not a negative messenger. Work on yourself for that. So with that, we will end.